Hey there, I'm Mark Renneson, and welcome to another episode. Hey there, I'm Mark Renneson, and welcome to another episode of Pickleball Today. All right, we've got a great show lined up for you today. You know what I like to talk about. So we can talk about technique, we can talk about tactics, love to talk about equipment, we can talk about etiquette, we can talk about ethical dilemmas when it comes to pickleball, we can talk about coaching. There is just so much to do, so let's get to it. I've been on the road and coaching quite a lot lately, and even though I have a plan for the clinics that we're going to do, by the way, any coach should have a plan. Any coach should have a plan for their lessons, but I also think it's important that we sort of meet students where they are and we try to meet the needs of our players. And of course, this is easier to do in smaller groups rather than bigger ones. But even in a bigger group, if you're coaching, you can ask your players like, hey, is there something you'd like to work on in particular? Or there's some questions that I can answer. And very often players, especially this is true as you get sort of lower in skill level, they're sometimes a little bit nervous to ask questions at their group, right? Their open play session. They don't want to look like a dummy. So sometimes I try to give them this space where they can ask questions that otherwise they might sort of be uncomfortable with. And one of the questions that has come up a lot lately when I've been coaching has to do with the rules around the drop serve, right? What's allowed and what's not? What exactly are the rules? What can you do with the ball and without? Where can you drop it? How long do you have? How do you swing? There's a lot of questions here. So I figured what I do is head out to the courts, or something that sort of approximates the courts, and give you a little bit of a lesson, a little bit of a primer. I always thought it was primer, but a little bit of a primer on the drop serve. All right, so we don't actually need to be on a pickleball court to be able to demonstrate this, I don't think. So this park will do fine. So first thing, let's make sure that we really differentiate between sort of like the two main categories of serve, two main kinds of serve, right? There's one where it's just like the more traditional serve, right, that you hit out of the air, right, like that. Let's call that a volley serve, right, because I'm sort of volleying it out of the air. And then there's the drop serve, right? And the drop serve is where you let the ball bounce before you hit it, okay? So those are going to be our two sort of main categories, and we need to understand what the rules are about each and where there's similarities, where there's differences. Okay, so when you're hitting the more traditional volley serve where you hit the ball out of the air, there's three sort of key technical elements that you need to keep in mind. One is that when you make contact, the highest part of the paddle can't be above your wrist, okay? So it can't be up here like this when I hit, right? That's above my wrist. It can be in line with my wrist, right? And it can certainly be below, but it can't be above my wrist. So when I hit that serve, I gotta be careful that this isn't above my wrist. Now, generally speaking on forehand serves, that's not too much of a problem. Where we see this fraction most commonly is when people hit backhand serves, is because it's a little bit harder for people to sort of drop the paddle head like this on the backhand, right? So you see a lot of the time when people hit backhand serves that it's often too high. Okay, so that's one of the rules, is the highest part of the paddle can't be above the wrist. Okay, so a second rule is that when you make contact with the ball, when you're hitting the regular volley serve, you've got to make contact below your waist. So you can't be hitting up here like this. You certainly can't be hitting like this. It's got to be below your waist when you hit. So if you're hitting down here, you're fine. If you're hitting up here, you're not so fine. Okay, so there you go, below your waist. That's rule number 2. And the third rule when you're hitting the regular serve, the volley serve, is that your paddle's got to be moving upwards, right? It's got to be moving in an upward arc. So could I serve like that? Yeah, you can serve like that using a bowling technique. I don't recommend it personally because it's overly limiting. But even if I serve like this, even if my paddle is just moving up on like 1 degree of an angle upward, 1 degree of an incline, it's still an upward swing, right? It's moving on an upward arc is what they say in the rule book, okay? So those are the three things. Paddle can't be above the wrist, got to make contact below your waist, and the paddle's got to be moving on an upward arc when you make contact, okay? That, of course, is when you're hitting the regular serve. Okay, but everything changes as soon as you decide to do the drop serve. Okay, so first, let's talk about the mechanics, the rules about the mechanics. So we talked about the three things, right? The paddle not being above the wrist, and you got to swing upward, below the waist. Well, if you choose to hit the ball after the bounce, none of those things matter. Those rules are gone. You can swing however you want. You want to swing down on the ball? No problem. You want to, I don't know, have the paddle above your wrist when you hit? Great, go for it. All of the technical rules about serving, or the mechanics when you serve, they go out the window when you choose to hit the drop serve. So you can do things, like for example, hit down if you really want to slice the ball and put backspin on it, that you can't really do with a volley serve. All right, so does that mean it's a free-for-all when it comes to hitting the drop serve? Well, not exactly, because there is one thing that's monitored when you use the drop serve, and that is how you release the ball. All right, so in the rule book, it says that it has to be an unaided release. So what does an aided release look like? Well, if I throw the ball down, that would be an aided release, right? And you can see how that could be an advantage. Ball comes up really high, and then I could smack it like this. It'd be a big advantage, wouldn't it? It has to be an unaided release. You can't throw the ball down. You also can't toss the ball upward, like this. Okay, so no tossing the ball up and no throwing the ball down. So what can you do? Well, you really just have to drop it. And that drop can happen from anywhere. I could hold it belly button high and drop it from there, drop from there. I can even sit on my tiptoes and drop it from there. And if I do that, if I follow that rule, then I can swing however I want. So the thing to remember, if you are using a regular serve, a volley serve, you gotta follow the rules. Below your waist, paddle not above the wrist, and paddle's gotta be moving upwards. And when you choose to play a drop serve, really the only thing you have to pay attention to is that you're just dropping the ball. You're just releasing it. You're not throwing it down, you're not tossing it up. That's like a lot of fun. Have you ever done a pickleball clinic? Maybe with a group of people, and maybe they're people you know, but it's possible you've gone to a pickleball camp somewhere, right? Or maybe you've gone to a clinic with a local pro, or it's some new special event. How do they group people? And I know initially when you sign up, it's typically like, okay, you write down your skill level, right? Are you a 2.5 or a 3.0 or a 3.5, 4.0, right? But we all know that how people report, or what they report as their skill level, is not always the same as their actual skill level, right? And so what do coaches do? How do they handle this situation? Well, there's a couple different options here, and I kind of want to talk about those for a moment and tell you which one I think makes the most sense. All right, so one of the ways to do this, and I think it's not the best one, is to go by whatever people report. So if you sign up for the clinic and you put yourself as a 3.5 and you go, well, we put all the people who say they're 3.5s, regardless of what they show us, regardless of what we see, they said they're a 3.5, so we put them on the 3.5 court. And I guess that's a way to do it. But what if they're wrong? What if they lied? What if they didn't even lie? What if they were doing it in good faith, but they just got it wrong? What if they're having a bad day? I had someone recently who said, oh yeah, I have to play with my non-dominant hand. Shoulder injury. Just got it yesterday, right? So just going by based on their word and how they sign up, to me seems problematic, because who knows if they're actually right about it. And then you have these mixed groups and the skill levels are all over the place and it's no fun for everyone. So I'm going to leave that one aside. Another option is that the coaches make the call. And it's true, when you're a pickleball coach and you're running a clinic, you do get the final say. Right? You do get the decision-making power to put people on court 1 or court 2 or court 3 or whatever you're doing. That can work. There's trouble with that, though. And the trouble with that is really trouble for the coach. Because what happens, let's do this scenario. I'm sure this would never happen to you. Let's say that you tell me you're a 3.5 player. That's what you filled out your little form. And then I watch you and I was like, you know what? Not so much a 3.5. There's nothing wrong with not being a 3.5, right? But we do want to make sure everyone's happy. So I could group you down lower. I could put you on the lower court. And as much as I might not call it the bottom court or the weakest court, most people can kind of figure out how those courts get divided, right? The strong end is over here, the middle group is here, the weaker group is down there. And you're probably going to figure out that I put you there. Now, you might be fine with that. You might be happy. You might say, Mark, thanks so much for making sure that I'm playing with people of my skill level and making it fun for everyone else. Or you might be like some people and be kind of annoyed with me. Think that I put you in the wrong place. Maybe I had something against you. Maybe I wasn't watching you carefully enough. Maybe, I don't know, you beat my friend in a tournament the other day and now I'm getting payback, right? Whatever. When you group people as the coach by skill level, based on your observations, you're opening yourself up to some potential criticism, right? That you're showing favoritism to one person or another, or who knows. So is that a way to do it? You just use your observations, you use your professional judgment, and you group people accordingly? Yeah, that can work. But I don't think that's the best solution either. All right, so what's a better solution? Well, the better solution, I think, is that you get people to play against each other. That you let the results speak for themselves. So let me give you an example. I was recently coaching out in California, which is outside of San Francisco. It was beautiful. We were running a Nike pickleball camp. And when we were out there, we had, 44 people, 48 people. So we had 12 courts going. And after we had a little warm up and a meet and greet and all that stuff, we got people out there, did a little bit of stuff together. We said, here's what we're going to do. We are going to play some one-on-one points. We made it fun. I didn't tell them this is how they were going to be grouped, but we made it fun, and they played one-on-one points. And the way it would work, skinny singles, for those in the know, is one person would serve down the line to their opponent, and then you play out the point. 2-bounce rule applies, kitchen rule applies, whatever. So there'd be 2 games going on every court at the same time. They're playing one-on-one, and they're keeping score. And we made it clear that this was now competitive time, so you should care about winning. And what we did is, if you won your point, if you were in the lead when I blew the whistle, which was every 2 minutes or so, then you get to move up. And you move up toward the top court. Now, you don't go all the way up to the top court, you just go up half a court, right? So if you win, you go up half a court, and if you lost, well, you go the other direction. You go down half a court only, right? And so what you do is now is you have enough rotations where the people who are stronger should, in theory, sort of more often than not, be winning their way upward, and they should be moving that direction. The less skilled players, even if it's just on that day, they should have enough opportunities that they sort of lose their way down, right? And what you do, the trick here is that you've got to have enough rotations that you're really going to get a good sort of final result, right? That someone who starts way on the bottom needs to have the opportunity to have enough games to win their way up. And that's what we did in California. What did I say, 48 people, 12 courts? We had this woman, I am not kidding you, she started at the very, 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 very bottom. And she won, and she won, and she won, and she won, and she won. She won something like 16 games in a row. Now, we have to make those games short, right? Because if we're doing like 2 or 3 minutes long and 16 games, that's 30, 48 minutes. No one wants to play that game for 48 minutes. So I told them, I said, oh, we're going to be fast. We're going to make it quick. Again, we didn't tell them why. We just said it's going to be fun. It's going to be competitive. 90 seconds, sometimes just a minute, blow the whistle. And so this one woman had enough opportunity to win her way all the way up to the top. Okay, so that's my suggestion to you. If you're a pickleball coach, consider using these one-on-ones, because what happens then, let's say someone's on the bottom court. And again, don't keep them there forever, but let's say someone's on the bottom court for their training. They're there not because you put them there, right? They're not there because you made the decision that they're the weakest player or in the weakest third of the group or whatever it is. They're there because they earned their way there, right? They lost enough times against enough players. And again, it's not just 1 or 2 rotations, right? They have enough time to sort of figure out where they should be. But more often than not, if you use this system, playing one-on-one, they can't blame a partner, right? No one's picking on their partner. Like, they're the ones who have to perform. If you have enough rotations, you've got a really good chance of getting people where they should be skill-wise. And that way it sort of takes the pressure off the coach. It's not your fault that they're there. It's theirs. I spend a lot of time teaching pickleball. I travel all over North America doing it. And we offer clinics on all sorts of different topics. Sometimes we talk about how to beat bangers or how to defend against tricky players, right, who really direct the ball well. Sometimes we talk about starting the point effectively, whether that's with a serve or a turn. I spent a lot of time talking about third shots, but I would say by far our most popular clinic, at least when it comes to the themes that we use, is spin. All about spin, both sending spin and receiving spin. People really love to do this stuff, and I think it's because we don't always understand sort of how spin works, how to apply it, when to apply it, right, and how to sort of interpret it when it's coming. So why don't we go out on the courts, and we'll do like a little bit of a crash course in understanding spin. A little wet out here. Really fashionable. You gotta pick a paddle. So you got, you show them the paddle.
It's a lake, Dad.
We're talking about spin. So, and it's about spinning the ball. So can you imagine why when people play pickleball, they might want to make the ball spin?
So it's harder for the other person to get it because it's spinning?
Yeah, that's right. It's harder for the other person to hit it when it's spinning. And sometimes pickleball players don't always understand how to make the ball spin in different ways, so we're going to teach them. Sound good? Mm-hmm. Okay, here, why don't you take one ball? Okay.
There's an X on this?
There's an X on it, yeah.
Why?
So there's, it's the kind of ball it is. It's called an X40. Okay. There's 3 kinds of spin when you hit the ball. One is called topspin, one is called backspin, one is called side spin. Topspin, backspin, side spin. Which one should we start with first?
Side spin.
Side spin. Ooh, okay. You know what? Side spin is like everyone's favorite one. So when you hit the ball, right? Let's say we were hitting it to the people at home. If we hit the, like that. When we hit the ball, if that ball, as it's flying away from us, it's spinning sideways like this, or it could be spinning sideways like that, right? That's what we mean by side spin. So it's flying that way, but it's spinning this way or spinning this way. And the reason you might hit side spin is that once that ball bounces, if it's spinning sideways that way or that way, it's then gonna jump that way or that way. So someone might think, imagine if I was hitting to you and this ball's got lots of side spin, and you think you're in the right place to hit it, and then it goes whoop.
Yeah.
I know, right? Or you might think you're in the right place to hit it, and it goes whoop, right? It could be tricky. Okay, so that's why you might use side spin, is to make that ball sort of curve left or curve right. Now here's how you do it. Can you hold your paddle like this? Okay, the way to make side spin happen is that you come across the side of the ball here.
I'm gonna cut you.
Yeah,
Can
like that.
You get that?
Yeah, so you want another one? Okay, so you come across the side of the ball. And the thing about it is that you can do it where you come this way, that's using your what we call your forehand, or if you flip your hands over and you come across the other way. Imagine if the ball was coming to this side, and then you said, oh, I know what to do. I'm gonna make side spin happen, and I go, and then the ball will spin over that way.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so sometimes people struggle to know which way it's gonna go. Wouldn't that be nice if you knew, even when I do a side spin shot, which way the ball is gonna go? Okay, so here's the way to think about it. You can see in the camera here. If I hit from this side of my body over here, then when that ball flies away, it's gonna bounce, we call it kick. It's gonna kick to that side. So if I hit over here, then after the side spin, it's gonna kick that way. And if I hit on this side of my body, over here on my left side, then once it flies away, guess which way it's gonna kick now?
That side.
Yeah. It kicks whatever side it's coming from. So imagine if I was playing with you at home, right? If I go and I was to hit this way, and that ball, it's bouncing, it bounces, which way is it gonna kick? If I hit it from here, that's right, it's gonna kick that way. And if I did it like this, over from my backhand side, and I hit it, and it goes, and it's going to bounce, and yeah. So, you, if you're playing pickleball, and someone does one of these side spinny shots, you know which way it's gonna go. But you know what? You have to watch. Because if when that other person's hitting the ball, if you're not watching them, if you don't know whether they hit from this side or this side, then guess what? You don't know where it's gonna go, right? So you gotta really keep your eyes open. Okay, so that's how you handle side spin. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you watching. All right, so backspin or topspin, which one should we talk about now?
Backspin.
Backspin, okay. You want a ball again? Cool. So backspin happens when when we hit the ball towards the people at home, right? It's flying,
Here you go.
it's flying toward them, but while it's flying toward them, it's also spinning backwards. So it's flying away from us, but it's spinning backwards, okay? And the reason you might do this is when you hit with backspin, that ball, once it lands, it kind of skids. The ball stays quite low and it skids after it bounces. And that's really good in pickleball if you can put people down low, because then they can't really hit that hard without the ball going out. So the way you make backspin happen is you open the paddle. Can you do this? You make it so it's tilted up a bit. Perfect. Now, if I just swing straight back to front and my paddle's tilted up, guess where the ball's gonna go? Where do you think it'll go if it's tilted up like this? Yes, it'll fly up in the air, right? So what we need to do is we need to counteract that upward impulse that's gonna happen with the open paddle face. And the way we do that is by having a slightly high to low swing path, right? So we come slightly down on the ball. And so even though it's tilted up, if I'm coming slightly down, then that ball is not only gonna stay lower, but it's gonna spin backwards. And I can do it on my forehand or my backhand side. That was pretty good, actually.
Thank you.
And so often we call this, they call it a slice. Often when you hear people say slice, they're talking about
Can I
backspin.
slice a pie?
Kind of like you're slicing a pie, sure. So we know why we might do backspin, right? To make that ball skid and keep it low. We know how to do it, a high to low swing path and an open paddle face. Now we better know how to handle it. When we see someone have that high to low swing path and swing down, we know that ball is gonna skid. So it's really important that we're prepared for that little quick bounce or for that ball to stay low. And so usually a shorter backswing is a good idea to be able to handle that faster rebound, especially on a slippery surface like this, well, when it's not soaking wet, okay? So you gotta see that that high to low swing path is happening. You gotta prepare for it. You gotta stay down on those balls, okay? We've got one more to talk about. Should we talk about topspin?
No.
we should talk about topspin. Backspin occurs when we hit the ball and it's spinning backwards toward us. Topspin's the opposite. So when I hit the ball and it's flying away from us,
So it's like...
it spins over the top, right? It goes over the top.
Like
yeah.
this?
Well, let's talk about how to do it in a second, but we'll talk about, that's not bad. Topspin comes, like I'll show you, when I brush up the back of the ball. So if we show the camera at home, if I'm hitting that way, right? If I brush up the back of the ball, if I swing from low to high, then that's gonna make that ball rotate, right, and have topspin.
I'm gonna go
Now,
get the ball.
if I go low to high like this,
Yes.
but the paddle face is open, it's gonna fly high, right?
Yeah.
Now I don't wanna close it, because if I hit like this, the ball's gonna go down into the net.
Yeah,
right?
that's straight.
So I need to swing low to high with a neutral paddle face, we call it. So I'm brushing up this way. That's gonna help the ball to
I'm gonna
rotate
get so
and not go flying high in the air. Now, why might you do topspin? Well, there's a few different reasons.
Oh, that was good.
All things being equal, a shot hit with topspin won't go as far as a shot not hit with topspin. It'll shorten the distance the ball travels. And this is really useful when you wanna hit hard. We know what happens if you hit hard, like let's say you hit a hard serve. If you hit hard and you hit high, the ball is
Yeah.
likely to go too far. Oh, you're back.
Yeah,
You want to be
I'm
on this side now?
Yeah.
And so when we hit with topspin, it's a way that we can still hit hard, still hit pretty high over the net, and hopefully keep the ball in play, right? You want to hit it that way, see if you can do topspin?
This one?
So it's straight up and down,
Okay.
and you brush up the back of the ball. So
Like
from low to high, yeah,
Okay.
like that. There you go. Okay, so we see players use topspin a lot when they're serving, so they can still hit hard and have a decent margin for error. We see it a lot of the time when they're driving the ball, like a third shot, and you want to keep that ball in play. Well, drive is when you hit low and fast. Even on shots like dinks and drops, we're seeing more and more topspin because that way you can get the ball up and over the net, and hopefully it then comes down and lands around people's feet, where it's tricky to handle. So it's that low to high swing path with a neutral paddle face. A note about grips here. You can use different grips to be able to do this. If you hold with your hand slightly behind the handle like this, we call this an Eastern forehand grip. See how the paddle face is straight up and down? That's really nice for hitting with topspin. If I use what some people call a hammer grip, but the technical term is a continental, well, the paddle face kind of naturally opens. You can do it. Yeah, look at that ball spin. Right? It naturally opens with a continental face, so it's a little bit tricky. You can do it, but it's kind of uncomfortable. You gotta really turn your body. So it's preferred to use this Eastern forehand grip, making it easier to go low to high. One more time. Are you doing the slice? Well, the topspin is where you brush up.
I want to do the back.
Oh yeah, so that's when it's open, and you just go, yeah, boom, backspin, nice. Okay, so there we go, those are our three kinds of spin: topspin, backspin, side spin. Give it a try. It's a lot about feel, so it might take you a little bit of practice, and a wall can work well with this, and a ball machine can be great too. Okay,
Do you like my paddle?
I think they like your paddle. All right, see you soon.
Bye.
So we communicate about pickleball in lots of different ways. And you know I do lots of video stuff. That's what we're doing here today, right? For Selkirk TV, is talking about pickleball stuff through video. But we also do a lot of written material. I create a lot of, whether it's our pickleball lesson plans or the pickleball articles that I write for Third Shot Sports. We do a lot of audio with our podcast called Pickleball Problems. But video is a really useful tool, right? I love that it's so visual, and there's a lot of technology that's evolving that allows us to do things that maybe I couldn't have done before, certainly not as quickly as I could have. And one of those things is using TikTok. Now, for those who don't know, don't worry, you don't have to be in your teens to use TikTok. Everyone uses TikTok these days, or lots of people do at least. And I really like it because it allows us to make these really short, impactful videos. And sometimes they're really straightforward and just about learning things, and sometimes we try to make them kind of funny too. So I'm going to share with you some of my favorite, most recent TikToks.
Some people think pickleball is all about getting to the net. It's also important to know when to back up to buy time and defend.
So when you're playing competitive pickleball, if you can overpower your opponents, just smack it at them.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Stop with the shenanigan.
Three elements of great pickleball technique. Balance setup. impact point. Stable paddle face launches again to sea. In pro pickleball, the stronger player typically takes more space on the court. Here's PB legend Simone Jardim doing her thing.
I need to feel something. Harry, can you tell me something that'll piss me off? Boba Fett's better than Mondo. Yep, that'll do it.
All right, that does it for this episode of Pickleball Today. I'm really glad that you joined me, and I'd love to know what you think about this show. Why not send me an email? mark@thirdshotsports.com is a great way to get in touch with me. Of course, you can find us on all the social media. Look for us at Third Shot Sports, whether we're talking Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I don't think we have a Pinterest yet. Is Pinterest still a thing? Let me know. Send me an email and let me know if Pinterest is still a thing. Okay. Quick reminder, we've got lots of cool things coming up. We've got our podcast, Pickleball Problems. That is out. You can find it here on Selkirk TV. We've got our pickleball lesson plans. If you want to be a certified pickleball instructor, head over to pickleballcoachinginternational.com or pcipickleball.com if you like. We've got a whole new level 1 program that's all online. It looks fancy and shiny and new. Anyway, tons of stuff. Let me know what you think about the show. Let me know if you have any show ideas. What would you like to see? What would you like me to talk about? Mark@thirdshotsports.com. See you next time.